Hello, welcome back. It's Thursday. We have a new day. I have paid my bills. It's a very nice weather. It's a little bit hot. So let's read some more. It's a little bit hot, but I have to close my door. So let's try read more from my read lists. Let's do the Roman Empire. It's 1 p.m. Oh, that's a big one. Did not see that. But that's good. But already I have recorded some video with this camcorder. So I think that's 30. That's 37 pages. Yes, but can finish could record with this camcorder bit, then I have to change to another camcorder. So already I have recorded like 50 minutes today, this camcorder. So let's read about it, the Roman Republic.
Roman Republic. Roman Republic Res Publica Romanac. 509 BC 27 BC Grey coin. Denarius of 54 BC, showing the first Roman consul, Lucius Junius Brutus, surrounded by two lictors and preceded by an accensus. 1. Map of the Roman Republic. Roman provinces on the eve of the assassination of Julius Caesar. 44 Capitol Rome. Official languages: Latin. Common languages: Etruscan, Greek, Osco-Umbrian, Venetic, Ligurian, Russian, Nuragic, Sicel, Hebrew, Aramaic, Syriac, Thracian, Punic, Berber, Coptic, Illyrian, Iberian, Lusitanian. The Roman Republic, Latin, Res Publica Romana, Res Publica Romana, was the era of classical Roman civilization, beginning with the overthrow of the Roman kingdom, traditionally dated to 509 BC, and ending in 27 BC with the establishment of the Roman Empire. It was during this period that Rome's control expanded from the city's immediate surroundings to hegemony over the entire Mediterranean world. Roman society at that time was primarily a cultural mix of Latin and Etruscan societies, as well as of Sabine, Oscan, and Greek cultural elements, which is especially visible in the ancient Roman religion and its pantheon. Its political organization developed at around the same time as direct democracy in ancient Greece, with collective and annual magistracies, overseen by a senate. 4. The top magistrates were the two consuls, who had an extensive range of executive, legislative, judicial, military, and religious powers. While there were popular elections each year, the Republic was not a democracy but an oligarchy, as a small number of powerful families, called gens, monopolized the main magistracies. Roman institutions underwent considerable changes throughout the Republic to adapt to the difficulties it faced, such as the creation of pro-magistracies to rule its conquered provinces, or the composition of the Senate. Unlike the Pax Romana of the Roman Empire, throughout the Republican era Rome was in a state of quasi-perpetual war. Its first enemies were its Latin and Etruscan neighbors, as well as the Gauls, who even sacked Rome in 387 BC. Nonetheless, Rome demonstrated extreme resilience, and always managed to overcome its losses, however catastrophic. After the Gallic sack, Rome conquered the whole Italian peninsula in a century and thus became a major power in the Mediterranean. Its greatest strategic rival was Carthage, against which it waged 3 wars. The puny general Hannibal famously invaded Italy by crossing the Alps and inflicted on Rome 3 devastating defeats at Trebia, Lake Trasimene, and Cannae, but Rome recovered again, defeated Carthage at the Battle of Zamar in 202 BC, and became the dominant power of the ancient Mediterranean world. It then embarked on a long series of difficult conquests, defeating Philip V and Perseus of Macedon. Celtiberian, Gaulish, Galatian, Aquitanian religion, Roman polytheism, demonym, s. Roman government, mixed diarchy, constitutional republic, consuls 509 BC, first, Lucius Junius Brutus, Lucius Collatinus 27 BC, last, Octavian, Marcus Agrippa, legislature, assemblies, Roman Senate, historical era, classical antiquity, overthrow of the monarchic. 509 BC, dissolution of the Latin League. 338 BC, 2. Sulla named dictator. 82 BC, Julius Caesar named dictator. 49 BC, assassination of Julius Caesar. 15 March 44 BC, Battle of Actium. 2 September 31 BC, Octavian proclaimed Augustus. 16 January 27 BC, area 326 BC, 3. 10,000 kilometer 2. 3,900 square mi, 50 BC, 3, 1,950,000 kilometer 2, 750,000 square mi. Antiochus III of the Seleucid Empire, the Lusitanian Viriathus, the Numidian Jugurtha, the Pontic king Mithridates VI, Vercingetorix of the Arverni tribe of Gaul, and the Egyptian queen Cleopatra. A series of social and political crises ended in several violent civil wars. At first, the conflict of the orders opposed the patricians, the closed oligarchic elite, to the far more numerous plebs, who achieved political equality in several steps during the 4th century BC. Later, Rome's vast conquests disrupted its society, as the immense influx of slaves they brought enriched the aristocracy, but ruined the peasantry and urban workers. In order to address this issue, social reformers tried to pass agrarian laws. The Gracchi brothers passed reforms, though eventually they, Saturninus, and Claudius Pulcher were all murdered by their opponents, aristocratic senators. The reformers are often given the label populace, and the senators fighting the reforms optimates. Mass slavery caused 3 servile wars. The last of them was led by Spartacus, a skillful gladiator who ravaged Italy and left Rome fearful until his defeat in 71 BC. In this context, the last decades of the Republic were marked by the rise of great generals, who exploited their military conquests and factional situation in Rome to gain control of the political system. Marius, between 105 and 86 BC, then Sulla, between 82 and 78 BC, gained increasingly absolute power using their military control to purge political opponents. These tensions led to further civil wars, the first between generals Julius Caesar and Pompey. Despite his victory and appointment as dictator for life, Caesar was assassinated in 44 BC. Caesar's heir Octavian and Lieutenant Mark Antony defeated Caesar's assassins Brutus and Cassius in 42 BC, but they eventually split. The final defeat of Antony alongside Hyzale and lover Cleopatra at the Battle of Actium in 31 BC, and the Senate's grant of extraordinary powers to Octavian as Augustus in 27 BC, which effectively made him the first Roman emperor, marked the end of the Republic. History. Founding. Rome had been ruled by monarchs since its foundation. These monarchs were elected, for life, by men who made up the Roman Senate. The last Roman monarch was named Lucius Tarquinius Superbus, colloquially known as Tarquin the Proud, and in traditional histories Tarquin was expelled from Rome in 509 BC because his son, Sextus Tarquinius, raped a noblewoman named Luretia, who had afterwards preceded by Jaxida by Roman Kingdom Macedoniae Seleucid Empire Ptolemaic Kingdom Attalid Kingdom Carthage Audrician Kingdom Latene Culturi Roman Empire. Animated overview of the Roman territorial history from the Roman Republic until the fall of its last remnant, the Byzantine Empire, in 1453 at the end of the post-classical era. Taken her own life. The husband of Luretia, Lucius Tarquinius Collatinus, together with Tarquin the Proud's nephew, Lucius Junius Brutus, mustered support from the Senate and Roman army and forced the former monarch into exile to Etruria. 5, 6, 7. After this incident, the Senate agreed to abolish kingship. In turn, most of the former functions of the king were transferred to two separate consuls. These consuls were elected to office for a term of 1 year. Each was capable of acting as a check on his colleague, if necessary, through the power of veto that the former kings had held. Furthermore, if a consul were to abuse his powers in office, he could be prosecuted when his term expired. Lucius Junius Brutus and Lucius Tarquinius Collatinus became first consuls of the Roman Republic. Despite Collatinus' role in the creation of the Republic, he belonged to the same family as the former king and thus was forced to abdicate his office and leave Rome. He thereafter was replaced as co-consul by Publius Valerius Publicola. 8. Most modern scholarship describes these events as the quasi-mythological detailing of an aristocratic coup within Tarquin's own family, not a popular revolution. They fit a narrative of a personal vengeance against a tyrant leading to his overthrow, which was common among Greek cities, and such a pattern of political vengeance was theorized by Aristotle. 9, 10, 11. Roman Lation. Early campaigns. According to Rome's traditional histories, Tarquin made several attempts to retake the throne, including the Tarquinian conspiracy, which involved Brutus' own sons, the war with Veii and Tarquinii, and finally the between Rome and Clusium, but none succeeded. 12. The first Roman Republican wars were wars of both expansion and defense, aimed at protecting Rome itself from neighboring cities and nations and establishing its territory in the region. 13. Initially, Rome's immediate neighbors were either Latin towns and villages, or else tribal Sabines from the Apennine hills beyond. One by one Rome defeated both the persistent Sabines and the local cities, both those under Etruscan control and those that had cast off their Etruscan rulers. Rome defeated its rival Latin cities in the Battle of Lake Regillus in 496 BC, the Battle of Aricia in 495 BC, the Battle of Mount Algidus in 458 BC, and the Battle of Corbuio in 446 BC. However, it suffered a significant defeat at the Battle of the Crimea in 477 BC, wherein it fought against the most important Etruscan city of Veii. This defeat was later avenged at the Battle of Veii in 396 BC, wherein Rome destroyed the city. 14, 15, 16. By the end of this period, Rome had effectively completed the conquest of their immediate Etruscan and Latin neighbors and also secured their position against the immediate threat posed by the nearby Apennine Hill tribes. Plebeians and patricians. The Capitoline Brutus, a bust possibly depicting Lucius Junius Brutus, held the revolt against Rome's last king and was a founder of the Republic. Beginning with their revolt against Tarquin, and continuing through the early years of the Republic, Rome's patrician aristocrats were the dominant force in politics and society. They initially formed a closed group of about 50 large families, called gens, who monopolized Rome's magistracies, state priesthoods and senior military posts. The most prominent of these families were the Cornelii, followed by the Aemilii, Claudii, Fabii, and Valeritu. The power, privilege and influence of leading families derived from the wealth, in particular from their land holdings, their position as patrons and their numerous clients. 17. the vast majority of Roman citizens were commoners of various social degrees. They formed the backbone of Rome's economy, as small-holding farmers, managers, artisans, traders, and tenants. In times of war, they could be summoned for military service. Most had little direct political influence over the Senate's decisions or the laws it passed, including the abolition of monarchy and the creation of the consular system. During the early republic, the plebs, or plebeians, emerged as a self-organized, culturally distinct group of commoners, with their own internal hierarchy, laws, customs, and interests. 18. Plebeians had no access to high religious and civil office, and could be punished for offenses against laws of which they had no knowledge. 19. For the poorest, one of the few effective political tools was their withdrawal of labor and services. In a secessio plebis, they would leave the city en masse, and allow their social superiors to fend for themselves. The first such secession occurred in 494 BC, in protest at the abusive treatment of plebeian debtors by the wealthy during a famine. 20. The patrician senate was compelled to give them direct access to the written civil and religious laws and to the electoral and political process. To represent their interests, the plebs elected tribunes, who were personally sacrosanct, immune to arbitrary arrest by any magistrate, and had veto power over the passage of legislation. 21. Celtic invasion of Italy. By 390, several Gallic tribes were invading Italy from the north. The Romans were alerted to this when a particularly warlike tribe, the Senons, 22, invaded two Etruscan towns close to Rome's sphere of influence. These towns, overwhelmed by the enemy's numbers and ferocity, called on Rome for help. The Romans met the Gauls in pitched battle at the Battle of Allia River around 390–387 BC. The Gauls, led by chieftain Brennus, defeated the Roman army of approximately 15,000 troops, pursued the fleeing Romans back to Rome, and sacked the city before being either driven off or bought off. Roman expansion in Italy. Wars against Italian neighbors. From 343 to 341, Rome won two battles against their Samnite neighbors, but were unable to consolidate the gains, due to the outbreak of war with former Latin allies. In the Latin War, 340–338, Rome defeated a coalition of Latins at the battles of Vesuvius and the Trifanum. The Latins submitted to Roman rule. 23. A second Samnite war began in 327. 24. The fortunes of the two sides fluctuated, but from 314, Rome was dominant, and offered progressively unfavorable terms for peace. The war ended with Samnite defeat at the Battle of Bovianum, 305. By the following year, Rome had annexed most Samnite territory and begun to establish colonies there, but in 298 the Samnites rebelled, and defeated a Roman army, in a third Samnite war. Following this success they built a coalition of several previous enemies of Rome. 25. However, the war eventually ended with a Roman victory in 290. At the Battle of Populanaia, in 282, Rome finished off the last vestiges of Etruscan power in the region. Rise of the plebeian nobility. Map showing Roman expansion in Italy. In the 4th century, plebeians gradually obtained political equality with patricians. The starting point was in 400, when the first plebeian consular tribunes were elected. Likewise, several subsequent consular colleges counted plebeians, in 399, 396, 388, 383, and 379. The reason behind this sudden gain is unknown, but it was limited as patrician tribunes retained preeminence over their plebeian colleagues. 27. In 385, the former consul and savior of the besieged capital Marcus Manlius Capitolinus is said to have sided with the plebeians, ruined by Thesac and largely indebted to patricians. Livy tells that Capitolinus sold his estate to repay the debt of many oft him, and even went over to the plebs, the first patrician to do so. Nevertheless, the growing unrest he had caused led to